I'm ready to go.
Yeah. Ready?
Yeah, I'm good. Hey, darling, I can see you there.
Yeah. Well, welcome everybody. I'd like to introduce you to Lindy Klein, who'll be presenting today. Now, Lindy's not only one of Pukunui's most wonderful trainers, but she's also a passionate educator who's always looking for new ways to engage her learners. She would probably be one of the most passionate Moodlers I know, and I know that all of you will get a great deal out of her presentation today. So over to you, Lindy, and we all look forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much, darling. Hello, folks. This particular presentation, it doesn't have the most sexy title, I have to admit. I'm usually a lot better with titles than this. But it is something I'm kind of passionate about. I come from a university background where building things to templates and making sure compliance and quality assurance are all really well taken care of. So I've deliberately posed a bit of a curly question here. Can there really be a template for online learning? I know that there's plenty of templates for online courses, but it's not necessarily the same thing. Set up some activities in the course space for this presentation. Hopefully some of you have gone in and had a look beforehand, but I know how exciting iMoot is and how busy it can be, so I've kind of allowed enough time for us to go through and have a look at it here. This isn't meant to be a really huge presentation. I'm not really going into a lot of depth about stuff. It's more intended to be a friendly discussion with whoever comes along. So welcoming you all in here. What I'd like to ask you to do, there's a bit.ly link there, but it is literally the first activity in the course area. So if you can keep one window open for the presentation and one window open for the course, we'll go through and do some stuff together. And let's see how this works. So I've clicked on the link. I've just got the Q&A forum open in the background. I'm going to avoid sharing the screen if I can, just because I know it takes up a lot of bandwidth, and really cautious about using up bandwidth for those of you who are trying to join in iMoot from very dodgy connections or mobile connections. I know the feeling. I used to live in rural New South Wales in Australia, so not much in the way of solid connection out that way. Just while people are going in and having a go at that forum, now we've got a chat stream happening in the side here, so if you'd prefer, you're welcome to answer the same sort of question over to the side. What I'm asking you to do is consider what your experience of online learning is. It might be that you've been a course developer, maybe you've just been an online student, or maybe you're here because you're curious about what this online learning thing is. Any way you like is fine. There's no such thing as a wrong experience. You've got Julian in the room. I work with Julian Ridden in the Sydney office, so both of us are hyped up on caffeine. Teresa has posted in the chat. I can't see a reply link to participate in the forum. Teresa, can you actually see the link to the forum? So I've got the pause for reflection message up in front of me. Oh no. Epic fail. We switched to chat. Okay. So instead of trying to jump between the forum and the chat stream, then let's use the tool we've got in the presentation. Open up and we'll go in the chat stream instead. For those of you who have been trying to access the forum, I'm really sorry. I'll hopefully troubleshoot that particular issue before I run this presentation a second time. So for now, just use the chat area. And I'm just typing in part of my own online experience to kind of get the ball rolling. Please forgive my typos. My fingers are not particularly dexterous today. Teresa, you're an absolute angel. Thank you. Trish, I know you've been really active in the online space. So really, the reason we're reflecting on what our online experience is, it's hard to get a feel for why a template is even relevant if you don't have experience with online learning. It makes more sense if you've got experience as developing online courses, but even from a student perspective, you can understand why having navigation elements that are consistent makes sense and is helpful for a student. We'll move along. And the next activity we've got is a quick poll. Now, given I've got an epic fail on my course just at the moment, try and use the chat stream for this as well. So the polling question is simply this. Is there a template for online learning? And it's more to get you thinking about, have you been able to use a template for online learning in your own experience, or have you come across other practitioners who've presented you with templates that you could use or that you found helpful or stimulated conversation? Oh, Maggie, that sounds like one epic online experience. Tim, I love your response there. Richard, I'm glad to have you along. And Trish, that's exactly what I'm driving at in this. Practically, yes, sometimes they can help as a guide, but when you have courses, either as a developer or as a student, and they all look the same, it gets so frustrating. Apologies for the next couple of slides in this, folks. For those of you who are hungry, this isn't going to help. So what's a template anyway? I've used that visualization of your gingerbread man and the gingerbread cookie cutter because I do see a lot of courses that look like they've come out of a cookie cutter. And it's not intended to be derogatory. A lot of them are really focused on this idea of quality assurance and compliance. We have to have these set elements available for our students in this set order. I'm not suggesting for a moment that there's anything wrong with having to be compliant with external bodies, with doing quality assurance on your courses. In fact, I believe it's a really good thing to do quality assurance on your courses. But when that's the only focus of the course building, the learning kind of gets left by the wayside. Likewise, it's not just all about uniform presentation, so we have this set of icons and a 14-point font in Arial or Helvetica. Teresa, that's a really good point. That contact information for teachers should be in the course, but it's still the teacher's kind of right or responsibility what they put there and how they put it in. Oh, dear Lord, not Comic Sans. So I'm kind of posing here, how do we develop a template for learning? And part of what kind of led me down this particular journey, I've been building online courses for a while now, but one of the biggest projects I've taken on has been over the last year. Um, we did need to be compliant with some external requirements. We did want a uniform look and feel, but across several modules, I also wanted the students to get a sense of this activity sequence has not so much a predictable feel, but at least a comfortable, I'm familiar with it feel. So we've got the recipe for gingerbread here. I kind of want to focus on our role as online course developers is to be able to set the recipe out for our students to give them the building blocks to have the experience. And in this case, the experience is building the gingerbread, is actually cooking that together with whoever happens to be around at your place. I sense I've lost the conversation to Comic Sans. When we write the recipe for an online course, we're designing what activities go in it for our students to have learning experiences through it. We're trying to design the space and the experience that we're expecting them to have, but we can't template it because every learner is going to be different. Stop me if I'm preaching to the converted, folks. For me, organisations often confuse what they want to use a template for. And I can kind of identify 3 different purposes. You may be able to identify more. It's obviously a presentation purpose. We want them to look professional. We want them to have a consistency of icons so our students don't get lost. We want to make sure that we've got some quality assurance processes in place, that we're compliant with any external bodies we have to work with. We're being audited. We want to make sure that we've got all the requirements for the auditors to come in and tick off the course as being compliant so we can keep running it. Just because it's compliant doesn't mean it proposes really good, engaging activities for our students. So we need an element there for learning design. I want to take us out and start looking at the multiple elements that contribute to an online course being built. Those elements can belong to any one template. And for now, I'm budging by calling it a learning design template, a quality assurance template, and a presentation template. I've only selected a sampling of elements that go together to build an online course. I'm sure there's many more that I've forgotten, so we're going to try and get collaborative one more time here. Richard, you don't need to apologise for the Comic Sans comments. I think we all understand where you're coming from. So some of the elements that go together. Font. That it's clear, that it's a particular size type, that it fits with the style guidelines of our organisation. It's often a big one. Activities, both the assessment for the final accreditation and the formative assessment for the practice and the learning side of things. Use of multimedia, are we going to use it in this format or that format, or are we going to use it at all? I've got a link there to a website called Pinside, which you do need to sign up for an account if you want to join in on this activity, but it is literally put in an email address and a password and you've got access. It's not my favorite tool, but I'm hoping that it's the easiest one for us to get in and use today. So click on the link, and I'll put it into chat as well, just in case we have issues with it from the presentation slides. Tab and copy paste doesn't work for you folks. Like Moodle, this is a PHP-driven tool. Okay, let's see if it works from the chat session then, folks. It should take you into Pinside where you can sign up or sign in. Pretty much, Tim. Believe in just finding a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. So you can have multiple people joining in on Pinside together. There's a lovely new note button up the top. You click it, add a note, drag it to wherever. It will list you as the author on it though, so if you're not entirely comfortable with being identified here, don't feel like you have to participate. And Susie, I'm just refreshing the page. Okay, folks. I was hoping to get collaborative because that's something that I love to do, but despite testing this out with a partner last night, it's not a private board, Susie. It's been released as a public one, but it's still not playing nicely. It's kind of sad. Okay. Thank you all very much for giving it a go with me. 3315 board, Teresa. I will give it a go. And no, I can't. Okay, folks. Thank you very much for trying it out with me. I'm sorry that it's just not working. Those of you who would like to get collaborative with this, I'm happy to take suggestions on a tool that can do drag and drop notes. Otherwise, I do have a Google Doc set up for this with other folks that I've been working on. I'm happy to release that after the session. Teresa, unfortunately, no. Giving it one last try, Teresa. No, it's still refusing to play nicely. Never let it be said that I don't at least give the technology a go, though. For those of you who would like to join in, what I might do is grab email addresses off user profiles, because if you put your email address in chat now, it'll be visible on recordings later on. So you're welcome to put an email address into chat if you want to give a go at sharing it. Otherwise, we might move along. Okay, one last time with a link. This one is a feedback activity in the course space though, so hopefully feedback activity is reasonably straightforward. Fingers crossed, the third time's the charm, folks. I have just typed that link into the chat for you. Oh, with a mistype, honestly. Shocking. Let's try that one. Sean, I did actually check public on the board that I'd set up in the more area, and I checked it just then. It's still checked, but it's just not showing up for folks, so I'm rather disappointed in that one. Yeah, awesome. We finally have one that works, people. Doing the happy dance around the table now. Okay, so this particular feedback activity I've done with just a sampling of elements that go into making up an online course. The idea here is to get a sense of where people put the element, which template they match it to. I've done a similar presentation on this with a colleague before in a live conference setting, and it was quite amazing to me how many people put each element in completely different templates. Each of these elements can belong to pretty much any of the template types, presentation, quality assurance, or learning. It just depends on what your purpose is. Oh, Julian, that's a horrible mental image to leave people with. But the analysis page for this is open to you once you've finished submitting your own response in there. Do feel free to keep refreshing it as we go through the rest of the presentation. It should help you get a sense of how different people categorize it. Um, Part of the point of this presentation, there is a Google Doc that's set up to do this, but this same idea of putting elements into different templates. But the Google Doc form is quite large and cumbersome, so it's harder to get that information out visually. Feedback does at least do a nice job of bar graphs with each element. I'm happy to release the Google Doc to you folks afterwards if you'd like to see how this took place last time we ran with a similar presentation. Move along now though. What I like is we all assume as we're categorizing elements through templates that it's just obvious. Text and font size obviously belongs in a presentation format, except when it's quality assurance for being fully compliant with accessibility guidelines, or when you're using it for learning purposes to highlight a particular element of a page that you've put in front of people. Each of these elements I could go through with similar kinds of examples. What I want to do is kind of draw out seeing this in action. I know this first image is rather large and cumbersome, folks. You can't see much detail on it. This is the snapshot from one of our online course pages, and it's just to give you a sense of where each of the elements we're about to look at fits on it. Our first space is topic 0 for those of you who are Moodlers, and Teresa, yes, you would have got a badge for that particular activity. Oh, thank you, Michelle. Topic 0 we're using as a navigation space. So each of these icons goes to a different section within the course. Notice there's a consistency in the iconography that we're using. So iMoot is where most people know us from. We use consistent images throughout this particular course, just because it's kind of funky to do that. Underneath them, you'll see a little clock icon. So for each session, we put an indicated time for people to complete it because we're working with adult learners. I've been a distance and online student now since I was about 8 years old. So that's roughly 20 years. It's a little bit over that, but I'm not saying by how much. Adult learners typically have a lot of demands on their time. They may be working, they've got families, they've got social lives. Who am I kidding? They don't have social lives. They're too busy studying our courses. But to encourage them to come in and have a go at these, we're trying to give them the time details so that they've got a sense of how much time to allocate for each section they need to get through. Now you could argue that that's part of the presentation because we've got the clock icon beside it, or that it's part of the quality assurance because it helps keep a consistent experience for our students as they go through the course. But me, I think that's part of the learning design, because I want my students to be able to get comfortable with doing any one session so that they block out enough time to be able to get through it at their own pace. They may be faster, they may be a little bit slower, but each time they go through and they're either a little bit slower than or a little bit faster than the estimated time, they're getting a sense of how long it takes them to get through. When we say X time, they know it's their version of X time. I hope that makes sense, folks. Darlene, I'm so there with you. Your kids have a social life. You, on the other hand, are just a social secretary. Okay, so another element within this course. It could be categorized as presentation. I don't think it is, though. We've got a help icon and a quick check icon. These are two blocks that we've created at the side of each course homepage. They're HTML blocks. They are consistently in the same position across the modules. Help stuff, I think really that's to get your learners on board. So while it's part of presentation, for a lot of organisations, that's also part of quality assurance, making sure that the students have a consistent place to go to get help that's always available to them. Underneath that, we've got our quick check block. That links off to a quiz that covers most of the content of the course. They can go in, they can test out, okay, do I already know this stuff? Do I really need to go through each and every resource here? Or have I got enough of a sense that I can just jump in with the activities? Again, we're dealing with adult learners. They like to be able to get through content as quickly as possible. So it's really frustrating for them when you put a lot of barriers to them just getting to the stuff they have to do. Sorry folks, I've got a little bit of lag with my slides actually loading. Hopefully it's not too bad from where you're sitting. Our topic 1 section within our course is devoted to a module overview area so that they get a sense of what this topic is about, how long the topic as a whole is going to take them, how they can review each of the resources that are included within the module, where they can go to get extra help. Susie, thank you. What the learning outcomes and intentions are for the course, and what tasks there are within the module. And I know I'm using the terms course and module interchangeably there, folks. I apologise for any confusion. For me, the more important of the items in this list are the two at the bottom. I want our students to know what intentions there are for them learning, so what they can expect to have as an outcome at the end of the course, and what tasks they have to do to get through the course. Ours are made up of a series of optional and mandatory tasks. So I wanted them to know from the start, these ones you can look at if you want, these are the ones you have to do to be able to get through the course. I think setting expectations with learners is really important, whether they're children or adults. If you know where you're going, it makes it a lot easier to get there. Michelle, most of these icons came from Shutterstock, so they're readily available if you want to go and have a hunt for them. Otherwise, if you private message me, I'm happy to share where I can find them, the IDs for each of the images. So they're freely available. You do have to pay for them, but they're readily available. Again, the use of consistent iconography here is more in the presentation template, but having that function there within the course becomes part of our learning template. So there's multiple templates being overlaid here to develop a course that works well for our learners. Trish, I suspect you're a lot more graphically talented than I am. I'm very grateful for Shutterstock. Getting deeper into our course, this is starting to become more text heavy. And again, that's partially because I'm not graphically talented. Within each section of our course, we give a brief overview of what the section is about and then list down the activities that are there. And I could just use the standard names for each activity within Moodle. That doesn't make a lot of sense to the audience that we're working with necessarily. So we've gone with a common term or a series of common terms. Food for thought resources are ones that are just intended to start discussion. They're not how-to, they're not technical, they're more talking around the issues involved with this particular concept. How-to resources are more technical and hands-on. They step bit by bit through how you do any one task that we're talking about. Missions are accessible tasks. Molly, that's an excellent source for free icons. I forgot I don't use it often enough myself. We've used the term mission in this course because most learners already have a mental association for the terms quiz, test, examination, assessment, assignment, and just about any other assessment terminology. Mission is both intended to be fun and to stop them from overly associating with a particular activity type in Moodle. We use just about every activity type there is in Moodle for assessment throughout this course. So a mission could be anything from a feedback activity to a forum to a wiki to an assignment. Love the sharing that's going on in the chat here, folks. You guys are doing great. Okay, so having kind of given you an example of a course that combines those elements, I'm looking again for, do you guys think there is a template for online learning? And I guess I'm revealing the trick that's in the question. There's templates for presentation, absolutely, where you can set down how it should look and feel and behave. Certainly templates for compliance to make sure that a course does what it says it's going to do. Can we really template learning, or is it just that we can give a rough guide for where we want to go. I'm going to turn it over to you guys in the chat area and see what you come up with. There is actually a choice activity in the course itself, given our rocky start with technology. I know the choice is there, I can see it, but I'm not sure if you guys can. So if you can see it, have a go at it there. Otherwise, turn over to the chat area and feel free to nut this out a bit further with me. There endeth the formal presentation, folks. If you'd like to grab the mic and have a chat, please do.
Before everybody starts, and I know they all will, Lindy, on the chat, thanks for a great presentation. It's
Thank you.
really great to see so many participants in on the chat and sharing their ideas and thoughts and links, and it's really been a wonderful presentation. So thanks for facilitating that, Lindy. It's been awesome.